Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, teacher.
Good morning. Welcome to the last part of our seminar. Today we have the presentation of Mimint and Fatima. Welcome, Fatima. Welcome, Mimint and everyone. But I don't see Lorena. Yes, because I think it's very important to wait Lorena because she will present her comments and suggestions. Give me a minute, I will text Lorena, okay? Lorena, ¿cómo estás? Buenos días, Mayora.
Hi, Lorena. Good morning.
Well, I think we can start. The agenda for this session, we have two principal activities. First of all, the presentation of Mimint and Fatima, because Nai is in the fieldwork today, and it is impossible for her to be here today. And in the second part of the section, we will start the module 5 and the session 3 about some perspective in terms of methodology, concepts, and ideas and example to work about this crucial issue of violence against Indigenous women. Okay. Well, let's start with, I don't know who wants to start. Mimit, are you ready? Perhaps to start?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, thank you.
So can I start now?
Sí, por favor, bienvenida.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone, all my friends and teacher. Today I'm here to present my proposal. So my research title is that I'm going to do a case study about a young diverse mother with young children who left by her husband in Capital Village, Mudang Township, Myanmar. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me move on. This is my research topic. Okay, here is just the example of a young mother who been left by her husband. This is just the example of the picture. I got this picture from one of our village, which from MIT organization. So here's like a young mother who been left by her husband with two young kids. So it's really hard for the women who's really young to be a mother with two young children. So yes, that I would like to figure out, conduct my research on this topic. So just to present our. So I'm from Mon community. Yep. See, here is the representative of Mon. traditional, and also fight to against violence against women. We also have like that, but not really work. So this is the justifications of my research to be able to the values of a diverse mother in her daily life and her value struggle and the challenge that she have in her life, and even also in the role of leadership, they have no like opportunity to involve. And women are viewed in my community, women are viewed just as a housewife, and they have no opportunity to even raise their voice sometimes, and cannot involve in decision making in an important roles. And to be specific, in Gobita community, like men are privileged, and people always believe that they are nobler than women. So any times if something happens, that man action is not to be blamed. So women are always to be blamed. And gender inequality and domestic violence that have been neglected and viewed as a simple case or normal case in the community. So people inside the community have no action taken or impunity in punishing the victim man. If something like example like abandon or abuse or like beat the women, people just say review as it just a nature. Like the woman being beat by her husband. So community belief or cultures or norm or religion, men are privileged and everywhere. And is it the patriarchal society in my village? And so, and we reflect and criticize the community people life, practice the cultural religious thing which against women's violence against women's or abuse women's rights. And I also hope like to get for diverse mother to survive in our say environment with dignity, or to be free from disrespect or devaluations or marginalization in the community, because the people usually like disrespect their diverse mother who been abandoned by her husband, because view as it is the fault of the women. The women always being abused. And here is my research questions. What is the community parent perspective on diverse mother, diverse women? So in here, we would like to find out like the community parent perspective for the protections or prevention of women's rights being abused or disrespect, marginalizations, to get justice for victim women, and to eliminate all their domestic violence. Here is the general question. I have 3 questions. I would like to find out what are the struggles or the challenges of a young diverse mother in her life, and the perspective of the community people on early child marriage and domestic violence, and how community people perspective affect on the victim women. This is what I would like to find out. And the general objective of the study is to explore the case study early child marriage of diverse young mothers in Gobita village, Mutung Township, Musk State, Myanmar. Here is the specific objective to discover the community parent perspective on diverse women, and to explain the struggles and challenges of young diverse mother in life, and to understand the perspective of community people on early child marriage and domestic violence, and to figure out how have parent perspective affect or impact on women. This is my objective. The approach that I will use the chapter is intercultural dialogue and participatory or collective and intergenerational dialogue and knowledge. We have discussions, exchange of knowledge, and also have conversations observation and storytelling. It can be live interview. I will do the interview, and this is the community-based participatory research to identify the traditional practice or cultural religion norms, and to strengthen the resilience of Hmong women or diverse women to prevent from being abused, derived or marginalizations, and it's where just vulva views and cultural justice of life of diverse mother to survive in a healthy or safe environment. Here are the people that will participate in my research. Example, I will have like the old people, adults, grandparents, the women. Here, the lips, I will have about 15 participants in my research. I will have the 3 women, I will have parents and grandparents, the religious leader. I will have village and 2 married men and 3 young adults, young girls. These are the people who will participate in my research. So the map of my town, this is the map of Myanmar. Mudo is a town in Mon State. Here is Mudo. So this is Mon State. And Kopita is one of the village in Mudong Township. So this is the sign of my village. We have this, yeah. And I cannot find more picture. We don't have picture from Kopita village. So the methodology that I will use in my research, I will use qualitative research, and I will use semi-structured interview or intent interview, and also focus group discussion to get the specific information. So I have dialogue of knowledge, discussion for experiential sharing, storytelling, and individual interview, and also the horizontal relationships from women, men, and families of Hmong people, the people in my village. And from the field experience, recognitions of essential knowledge. This is my methodology and the method that I will use. In the research process, I will have planning, preparation, then collect the data, and I visit the community and analyze and interpret. And finally, I will evaluate and give feedback, then present my final research paper. First, I will get the permission from the community, but the research process, there's a timeline. I will have if from April to August in the process. So I think I will start in April preparation, and we'll start in May. I will collect the data, and June I will analyze, and July I will start writing the report and prepare things, and I decide to finish everything in August and present my paper, come out with my paper. Here is the general schedules of with timeline. So just I have mentioned earlier, I will design and plan the research, and I will get permission from the community. Then I will collect the data and go a field trip, have dialogue with the community people, and I will interview, I will analyze, and yes, come up with the research, and I will analyze the research and interpret and present and write my report writing. Then finally, I will come up with the paper. This is what I have in my presentation, and here are the references that I use in my presentation. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask, and I would be happy to receive any comments or suggestion from teachers or from my friend, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, Mimint. It's an incredible project and presentation. Thank you very much. And now I want to ask Fatima if you should present your project. And after we have the comments and suggestion of Lorena. Thank you. Fatima, are you ready?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, no se escucha.
Fatima, we can't hear you. Are you there?
Yes, I'm trying to
Oh, okay.
share.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just thought we had lost you.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the padding. Hello.
Hello, Fatima. We can see the screen, but not the presentation.
Same here. I'm trying to show. It's still showing on my screen, preparing a PowerPoint.
Okay, if you want, you should send me your presentation by WhatsApp, and I should try if you want.
All right,
Teacher, Mai needs to stop sharing presentation.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
All right, let me send it to you.
Mimint, no, but I think Mimint is not sharing the presentation. I think perhaps it's a signal
Okay.
problem.
All right, please, teacher, let me send it to you through WhatsApp.
Okay, thank you.
Consulto si en lo que llega la presentación avanzamos con aportes a mí.
Ay, claro, Mayora, siga por favor usted.
Disculpen que no abra la cámara, es que voy en camino, entonces se me complica un poquito, pero primero agradecerle a
I'm
mí.
sorry for not opening the camera, but I'm going to start giving Mint her feedback. I want to thank Mint her feedback. And also just tell her that I thank her for doing this research on this topic because it's so important. And there's a stigma that young women who get divorced live through, and there's discrimination and violence and different kinds of violence. And I think it's a very important topic to broach because a lot of women, they live those oppressions and violence. So they don't live in those oppressions and that violence. They end up staying in a relationship that isn't stable or healthy, and they would rather stay with that partner than say that they're divorced. So it's a very important topic to take on because it tells us what does it mean for them and for their family and how society stigmatizes them. They don't support them or stand behind them. And the way it's said, the way that she was saying, that men are privileged, they're not affected at all. So it's a very important topic. I think my only suggestion or recommendation would be in the sense of clarifying the subject a little bit more. The case study is about a specific young woman who is divorced, but maybe what's the problem as such? Violence, that gender violence that she suffers, or gender violence against young divorced women, for example, in such community. That could be the topic, just to narrow down the topic a little bit more. That would be one of my suggestions. And in regards to the objectives, we also have to have the questions that are more specific. You ask in all three questions, what are the perspectives of the community parents and the communities and women itself on divorced women? Maybe that would be the main question. What is the perspective of women, families, and the environment in regards or around divorced women? That's one, but not have three of the same one, but have the same question on perspective. The other one is, what is the impact for women? And for this particular case, what impact and what motivated or what factors what motivated her for divorce, or to get divorced, and what impact does it have in her life and her families? And what is the ability to resilience and strength and sort of rebirth of this surviving woman as a divorced young woman, both when facing this violence and discrimination. I think that's another element that must be taken into consideration. And another one, and within that resilience ability, what does the community and people do? Because there has to be something positive that happens. What strategies, how can we create a support network? And then afterwards, the proposals as such. What are we going to do to accompany women that face discrimination and violence? How do their rights get violated? And broach it from that perspective. Obviously, from the central questions, you have the objectives. And from that objectives, we're going to have the chapters, and then also conceptualize. Because I don't think it's just in the community where MENA is doing their research. And it's something that happens in the world. Women who dare to separate from their partner who gets divorced, breaking that violence cycle, it's a very strong step for women. So we do have to document it. It's a very interesting, the research, and based on your methodology, maybe ask you to get closer to the intercultural research methodology. Maybe clarify the methodological process and detail it step by step. It's fundamental that you present the previous consultation and that it's a process that young women who are divorced come on board and they feel part of this process. And of course, how to accompany, because at some point they're living violence before, which is what originates the divorce, during the divorce and after, because the stigmatization that they face. So how do you think you're going to be working that part? Because you're going to sort of relive experiences and memories, and how are you going to accompany the healing of that? And how are we going to create this process of self-help? When you were talking about a focus group where you're going to discuss it, I'm assuming that it's a focus group of young women who have faced divorce, or adults or young women. I don't know, but it's an important space where you don't just have to do an interview, but prepare a workshop, energetic, spiritual, emotional, affectionate, of help that brings different moments. In one aspect is about sharing experiences, and the other one is to accompany a healing process and to provide strength. That would be my suggestions. I think your schedule is set. I know that by the end of July we have to have our first draft finished. So the first 15 days of July, we're going to have everything. We're going to be giving feedback, and then we have our final draft by the 15th of July. I know it's a specific case, but around that case, we're going to analyze the general problematic of the situation and resilience and the ability of position of women, and how ancestral knowledge and the respect of life is evidenced in it. So on this, on the one side, the problem, and on the other side, the strength of women and their identity. That would be my feedback. Thank you, Min. And I encourage you to continue. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayora. It's very important what you are saying.
Of Nukila. Nukila, go on.
Thank you, Angela. I would like to help Mimin because I just read about the CEDAW General Recommendation on Article 16 of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discriminations Against Women. This recommendation stipulated about the divorced women. That might be useful for your justification as well, or legal justification, because it said in point number 4, the economic consequences for women of marriage, divorce, separation, and death have been growing concern to the committee. Research conducted in some countries has found while men usually experience smaller, if not minimal, income losses after divorce and or separation, many women experience a substantial decline in a house, in etc. I'm really interested about the rights of the women after divorce, because I think your research is very important as well. Because I would like to highlight what the rights after divorce, for particularly regarding the maintenance of what about the maintenance of the property, and then what about the children rights, and then the future of the women, and then what about the separation of the wealth of between the men and women, and any other issue like this sexual and reproductive health right, and so on. I think that's only my comment for Mimin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nukila. And now we have the last presentation. Fatima, can you see my screen?
No. All right.
No.
Yes.
Yes, it's okay for you?
Yes, it's okay. I'm seeing it. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, Fatima.
Can I start presenting?
Yes, please. Go on.
All right. Greetings to everyone. The title of my research proposal is Bridging the Gap Strategy to Increase Education Opportunities for Bororo Girls in Cameroon. Introduction. This case study proposal outlines a comprehensive research plan to investigate. Actually, I'm not seeing all the full screen. Please, 1 minute. All right. The case study proposal outlines a comprehensive research plan to investigate strategy for increasing educational opportunities. Okay, thank you, teacher. Educational opportunity for Bororo girls in Cameroon. The Bororo people are semi-nomadic pastoralism community, approximately 200,000 individuals face significant challenges enrolling and retreating their daughters in schooling. We have some challenges from Bororo girls. We have the cultural factors. Traditional practice such as early marriages and prioritizing male education can hinder girls' enrollment and completion of schools. That is, early marriages can hinder a girl's child from going to school. We have the geographical factors. Semi-nomadic lifestyle can disrupt education due to frequent relocation and difficult accessing school in remote areas. Socioeconomic factors. Poverty can limit families' ability to afford school supplies, uniform fees, while girls may be needed to contribute to household chores and heading activities. Discrimination. Those are the challenges. Discrimination. Bororo girls, particularly in urban areas, may face social exclusion and discrimination due to their ethnicity and cultural background, further hindering their education opportunities. Justification. This case study proposal outlined a comprehensive research plan to investigate strategy for increasing educational opportunity for Bororo girls in Cameroon. The Bororo people are semi-nomadic pastoralism community, face significant challenges in enrolling and retreating their daughters in school. Limited access to education can have severe consequences, restricting future opportunities for Bororo girls, perpetuating gender inequalities within the community, and hindering national development efforts. Despite the urgency of addressing this issue, there is a lack of existing research on the effective strategy, especially tailored to the Bororo context. This study aimed to bridge the gap by identifying existing barriers and exploring successful intervention to enhance access to education for Bororo girls. As a researcher, I am glad to conduct this study and contribute valuable insight to inform policy and intervention that improve educational outcomes for Bororo girls. The objective, we have the general objective. Please just a minute. The general objective, analyze the fact. General objective, analyze the factors hindering Bororo girls' access to education and identify effective strategy to improve their educational opportunities. Okay, we have to talk about the research questions. The central questions are, what are the biggest challenges and potential solutions to improve access to education from Bororo girls in your community? Question on challenge. What are the cultural norms or traditional that affect Bororo girls' education? The second one, what are the economic barriers preventing Bororo families from sending their daughters to school? The third one is, what are the quality of education like in school attended by Bororo girls? The fourth one is there a lack of qualified female teachers who can serve as a role model for Bororo girls? The fifth question are Bororo girls facing safety concern, harassment, or discrimination while attending schools? What existing programs or initiatives are working to increase educational opportunity for Bororo girls? What are roles can Bororo community play in supporting girls' education? The third one is, how can educators and policymakers create a more inclusive and welcoming school environment for Bororo girls? The fourth one are, what are your thoughts on scholarship or financial aid programs targeted toward Bororo girls? The fifth one, are there membership program or extracurricular activity that could incentivize Bororo girls to stay in school? All right, now we talk on the objective. We have the general objective. analyze the factors hindering Bororo girls' access to education and to identify effective strategies to improve their educational opportunities. The specific objectives are to understand please. Specific objective to understand the all right, let me just use my mobile phone.
Just because it's not working. I am so sorry.
Let me just use my mobile phone. Specific objective should be to understand the sociocultural context and traditional practice affecting Bororo girls' education. The second one is to examine existing government initiative and program addressing the educational need of Bororo communities. The third one is to identify a successfully community-driven or NGO-led intervention promoting girls' education in similar contexts. The fourth one, to capture the perspective and experiences of parents, students, teachers, and local communities regarding the right to education. And the fifth is to narrow the gender gap for Indigenous girls and women within the community in education access. Methodology. The research will employ a mixed method approach combining qualitative and quantitative data collection method. Qualitative data will be collected through in-depth interview, survey, focus group with key stakeholders. This interview will including government officials, education, students, parents, and community leaders. This interview will provide insight into the personal experience and perspective of those involved in the education system. Fieldwork. Conduct semi-structured interview with Bororo community members, including girls, parents, teachers, and local leaders. Focus group discussion. Facilitate discussion with Bororo girls, parents, and educators to gain deeper insight into their perspective and experiences. The participant who will attend, we have 10 mothers, 6 fathers, 15 girls, 5 boys. The research will be conducted in Boyatown, Southwest Region, Newtown, Limbe, Southwest Region, Douala, Yassa, Littoral Region, Cameroon. We will select the members, discuss the research topic, define the scope, select moderator, and host the focus group. Quantitative data. Reviewing existing data, analyze and relevant studies on Bororo communities and girls' education. Location of the research. Modernization and the allure of urban life have led some Bororo people to migrate toward town. This migration offers access to trade, education, healthcare, and other social and economic benefits. Our research will be conducted in Boyatown, Southwest Region, Newtown, Limbe, Southwest Region, and Douala, Yassa, Littoral Region of Cameroon. This location offers great accessibility and resources for our research compared to remote areas, whereas Bororo people traditionally reside. Unfortunately, conducting research in those more rural areas is currently not feasible due to the ongoing Anglophone crisis in Cameroon. This conflict, also known as the Ambazonia War or the Cameroon Civil War, involved armed clashes between the government forces and the separatist group. The map shows the location of the Limbe, Boyatown, and Douala. go to the duration. The fieldwork is expected to last for about 16 weeks with 10 days dedicated to each community. The activity timeline from March to August, as shown in the table below. For March, we have to finalize the research proposal and budget, coordinate with communities and obtain research permit, being recruiting the research assistant, coordinate travels and accommodation for fieldwork, develop interview guides, questionnaires, and discussion topic for data collection, prepare arrange meeting with community leaders, educators, and potential participants. April, to travel to the research location, establish contact with local communities, conducting pilot interview and focus group discussion to refine data collection method. Conduct semi-structured interview with Bororo girls, parents, teachers, and community leaders. Facilitate focus group discussion with girls, parents, and educators. Collect relevant data from existing sources, government report, and NGO report. Then we go to May. Organize collected qualitative, identify emerging theme and pattern. Review and analyze existing qualitative data from government report and other sources. Prepare preliminary report summary, key finding to date. June, the month of June. Conduct further data analyze and refine research question based on emerging insight. Identify successful case studies of community-driven or NGO-led intervention in similar contexts. July. Okay, continuation of June. Draft initial report chapters including methodology, background, and preliminary findings. Developing recommendation based on the analysis. The month of July. Finalize data analysis and interpretation. Refine recommendation based on the comprehensive analysis. Finalize report writing, including introduction, conclusion, and references. Submit the final research to the FIMI. Disseminate research finding through the presentation at the conference and workshop. The month of August, coordinate with FIMI to close the activity. And then the donor panel, we have the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. I am so sorry. I think I didn't be so helpful as your assist.
No, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Lorena, querida Lorena.
Sí, buenos días de nuevo a Fátima. Agradecerle primero la propuesta, la presentación de...
Thank you, Fatima, for your proposal, for your study, the case study that you're presenting. It's taken on a topic that is very, very important, which is the right to education. In a context where I understand there's a lot of marginalization, poverty, you are living it presently. And education is a tool for humans to come forward, to get better in their participation and growth. So it's a very important topic that you're looking into account. And it's one of those rights for women in terms of the topic that you're discussing. I'll ask to have the access to the presentation later on to have better suggestions, because I think it's very precise. Is it access to education? And within your proposal, you're talking about key elements. So you try to identify the access to women, and then the capacity of resilience that the women have, of resilience, of resistance strategies, of demanding education. And you're stating both parts there. And we find that most investigations, the way we want the investigations to have, the issue here it's denouncing the problem, then looking at the causes, and also present what strategies, what actions have we take. And that's kind of my comment in terms of your objective. When I see your questions, specific questions, and the general questions that you have there, I see that you get a little bit with the main question from the general objectives, because you need to relate it better. The key question is, and it has to be based together with the general objectives. What are the limiting factors for the education? Then you talk about how they are all, the teachers see education, what's the educational system like? So what's the insight there? What is the educational system? So, or what's the contribution, or what's the perspective of the educational system of the white compared to the context where we're living in? In comparison to the indigenous people, can we do a cross-reference between the education of women, of the indigenous women, and the white people? So how would the educational system respond to that need? And how is it pertinent culturally or economically or politically speaking, based on the reality of the women, which is something that is, and how is that system limits education? And what is education for women? Is it really a need for them? Does it have an impact for them? Or is it seen as a right? Is it seen as a possibility for the women, for change, to get empowered, to have change and growth, to have a work, besides getting a job? And put that approach there for the women.
Mayora, qué pena la interrumpo. Es que Fátima me está escribiendo por el WhatsApp que no oye a la intérprete. Entonces está
¿Aló?
perdiendo su retroalimentación. No sé, Dunen, cómo podríamos solucionar el tema. Fátima, can you hear now?
Español, sí lo
Hello?
¿En español sí lo escuchan?
Lo escuchamos en español.
What?
Yes, I think the problem is
Fatima, are you here?
Okay, the problem is your signal. Ah, I have an idea. Perhaps I can record the comments. Lorena?
Yo creo que
La traducción.
Yes, Fatima.
Sugiero
It's
Ángela.
like he's rapping, he's too fast, so I'm not getting the comment.
Ah, ok. Alina, creo que es
Hello?
más ritmo, que es muy rápido, y como la señal de Fátima está lenta, entonces nos está pidiendo if it is possible for you to repeat, because she's not understanding very well. Y Mayora Lorena sería pedirle si puede. Ok, gracias, Alina, muchas gracias. Mayora Lorena, si usted puede repetir esta última parte para que Alina pueda hacerlo un poco más despacio, ya que la señal de Fátima se corta, entonces no está. También puede ser que usted me comparta posteriormente pronto un audio y se lo puedo hacer llegar a Fátima, si le parece bien.
Sí, eso le iba a comentar, que quizá sí, pero podríamos hacer algo por si la señal de ella no está bien, yo podría tener acceso al protocolo de ella, a su protocolo de investigación, puedo precisar mejor las observaciones y los aportes y le puedo grabar el audio a Ángela, se lo envío y ella ya se lo pasa en inglés, ¿le parece? Para para aprovechar los aportes que pueden ser mínimos, pero de repente sí pueden enriquecer, porque sí creo que el mayor como dificultad que yo veo es la relación entre preguntas, temas, y sí me gustaría precisar un poquito más con el documento. Por lo demás, en el tema de metodología también me parece muy positivo,
I
pero
feel that
totalmente en la metodología
that the
tradicional.
methodology
Me gustaría ver, aconsejarle, sugerirle que ella pueda plantear más desde el enfoque de la investigación intercultural su metodología,
to take the methodological
el acercamiento y el trabajo.
when you're getting into that approach with the people, when you're doing the interviews and the focus group, you probably want to create an intercultural approach so that once you get to talk with the people, with the community leaders and the people, we're gonna need to find out a way to get into that intercultural research that we have studied, so you have a better relationship with the people. So how do we put that dialogue where they don't feel attacked or with some questions that are just too that they can feel the commitment out of the men, out of the women, with my sister, so that with all the people that are being involved, so that they can see the access, the opportunity to have access to education that has for the girls, for the wife, for the sister, for the niece. So it's kind of a key element that you need to look into. How can you state that intercultural methodologies within your research so that it can be better structured within it? What are the steps and what are the ways that we can get there so you can do the research better? And I also find that it's very important too that are example of life. So that's something that you can take into account as well when you talk about the strategies and not forgetting the proposal as well that you're talking about and the actions that you're looking at. Because the topic about education has an impact of the incidents that it has in the community and incidents in the families, in the educational system, in schools, and also incidents in the public policies as well in terms of education that is not taken into account the women, which is treated from a white point of view. So just to not lose that, because that's going to be a part of the enrichment of the source. The demand of education and the access to education they have proposal, so the women have more doesn't get more vulnerable, and put a proper voice to that. What is education for women, and what importance does it have for them, and what local organizations do we have? And that's also important to mention. And how do they feel within that system? As a woman, how do I feel about being there? To have an educational system that creates resistance. And how do I stick the stigmatization that I have? To talk about a language that is not proper to me. Have me wear a uniform that is not compared to my it's something that has to do with education that comes from the white people. I didn't have the strength. I felt submitted. So how do I put how do I do that reflection to your study? The impact of the educational system. And if I have access to your protocol, I can probably get into more insight for you. I think, and I could probably record another audio for you so you can listen to it with more calm. Because I know other sisters from Africa and Asia as well, and of Dayala, we can all do that research with our hearts, with our souls, and with the hope that we are going to awaken and denounce the issues and present as well solutions that have the capacity and action proposals for the growth, to rebuild the educations in terms of violence, of education, of sexuality, of the access to land, of sovereignty, of the natural resources. So this is one of the main topics that we're looking at. So I think that is very I see the novelty and complementary to how each of one of you is working. And there's a lot of knowledge that are being shared here. So I need to remind you that the importance of writing, of our feelings and thinking, and I feel that and I encourage you there to look into those variables. How are you going to get that? How are you going to create that awareness from the cosmovision, from the indigenous people of Africa? How are you going to play that? So that how do you put that into create the awareness? How does it mean to have access to education? So that for Fatima, that will be my insight. Thank you to all of you, to you, and to everyone who has presented today. It's been, I see the richness in your studies, I see the richness in your, what you want to look into it, and I see the strength that you're putting there as well. So thank you very much.
Fatima, can you hear Elder Lorena now?
Yes, teacher, please, I don't know if you people can help me and put the comment in group chat because I've not heard anything. And my network was unable, my connection is very poor, so it's just going on and off. So I can copy them down to do the correction.
Okay. Don't worry. Lorena, Lorena, I will send Lorena your project in Spanish, and she will do the comments after, and perhaps she should give you an audio with her comments. Don't worry. I think we can find a solution. Okay. But now you can
All
hear
right.
now.
Thank you so much, teacher.
No, thank you.
Yes, I'm getting you.
Okay. Lorena, qué pena, Lorena, molestarte.
Sorry, Lorena.
Podrías hacerle, porque en este
So
momento Fátima tiene buena.
Fatima says that she has good connectivity. So could you please remind us the key points as well? Because I feel she wants to have it right now. To listen from you. First of all, a positive value of your studies is a very important topic to have access to education in the women of context where the women are being excluded of that right, and that education has to be seen. Is the education look at the men's side? Is it just like a case where just the men have access to it? So that's one key point that I need to make an emphasis on. Two is the element of relating it, the educational system, before you define clarity in your question, your key question, and auxiliary question, and that they are linked to your general objective. Once that is clear, you can make your key question connected to your general objective, and then the auxiliary questions are going to help us to find the general objective, the specific objectives, I'm sorry. The auxiliary ones are guided to look at what it has access of women being for women, like from the teacher's point of view and the educational system. Is it being stated in what way? It will be interesting to check as well, what is education for the women? And why is it being limited? What is it for them? What does it mean? What impact does it have for them? What implications does it have to have a right to education? But not just education, the white education, right? we're talking about education that frees up and emancipates the knowledge and the power, essential power, that strengthen the dignity of women as indigenous women and women in their territory. So that's also very important to highlight, because I think that it's important to put there in within the question that will lead to one of the objectives. A second question is, what factors are limiting, because perhaps the parents don't want them to go to school, that limit the access to education for the women, especially in the context where there is discrimination and marginalization because of the whites. So do that analysis as well. And also the topic of opportunities of that model, of that educational model. And what is the approach of that model that we want to get to? What are we putting there? What are we stating there? To be generators of labor, to an emancipating educational system. So do an analysis of that model. That to me is very important to have, that you are able to make an emphasis in your research, and also what alternative, what action can we find, having led by women, to have the right to education, and to that education with pertinence, with dignity, that is empowering, that doesn't put us, that gives us freedom, that we're not part of labor, but as women, we're subject of being able to talk about this limited, this proper education. Because this is just the educational system, but also the ones that we get from our towns. So that's another resource that we need. What is the education for the towns as a whole? Where you're doing the research, what is education for them? Besides the educational system, the formal education, what other type of education is there for them? And what do they want to teach? And what's the impact that it has in the communities? And then the proposal of the actions, of incidents. We have to make incidents at the level of not only opportunities, but, well, first there was the men. There was those who make the decision. Who goes to school and who doesn't? Who makes the decision? Another incident goes to the educational system as a whole, as a policy that revalues based on the situation as the communities, and breaks the barriers that we see, that white mindset that we have there. And that will be my suggestion over there. In terms of the methodology, you see the intercultural part, the intercultural research, what we're talking about. How are you going to get closer to the people from the community? That you can find on the platform, what research methodologies that we have studied you can use to get close to the proximity with the community. From their own identity, from their own history. And how can you apply that? Through the focal groups, through the interviews, how are you going to talk about the educational system and the community and the women in the community and the formal education system. You find that research that we're talking about through interviews. Also, when you go to the territory, how are you going to get close to the women? How are you going to talk to the men? Because they're the ones who many times make the decision in terms of who has access to education. So even if we're not going to the school, we're being educated in one way or another. So how do we use, how are you going to get used to them? How are you going to approach them? Are you going to go to a forest? Are you going to go to a house? Are you going to do it in the field? I don't know. You know better your environment. So what the methodologies they're going to be using, you need to look into that as well. You have the time very well established and how you wanted the process to be carried out as well. But I think that it's a topic that is very important and necessary to take into account. And as well as what Nukila was mentioning in the other part, when we talk about the impact, I think, what impact does it have to have access to women or no access to education? You need to talk about that part. Besides education and you can put them to debate. Well, besides not having access to formal education, what other types of educations are we getting? So I want to encourage you, Fatima, in this process to talk about the right of education. And I think that is a topic that is very important, that's very enriching. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Mayora. Bueno, yo no sé si es atrevido pedirle a Dunen, quien está desarrollando su tesis
The test is Dunen.
doctoral en este tema, si quisieras de pronto también hacer unos comentarios.
Can you make some comments there, Dunen, as well? Because you're doing a thesis
Would
based
you
on
like
this as
Dunen
well.
to do some
And
comments?
that
I
could
think
also
it would
help a lot.
help Fatima
If you
a
think you're
lot.
in tight, you can do some
If you
talk
want
about
to.
this. Please help us out.
Yes. I'm going to sort of establish a little bit of the doubt because in relation to what Mayora Lorena was saying, speaking about education, or our own education, like it's called in the Colombian context, that happens within the dynamics of our own education system. Sometimes it becomes an issue because it's either one or the other. And in the case of the Arhuaca indigenous women in my peoples, we identified a subject that was very interesting, and it's that there is a policy of strengthening cultural strengthening that says that indigenous education needs to be the one that strengthens the cultural aspects of the peoples, and that's why the authorities are focused on meetings, community spaces, the spiritual authorities saying we have to strengthen our education in our temples. However, it calls my attention that some young people, women and men, they migrate from their communities to access academic education. So we say, what's going on? Why is it that on one side the authorities are saying we have to maintain and sustain culture through our own education? The truth is that their children, their nephews, their grandkids want to leave and access academic education. So you kind of say, what's going on? And in the reflection that we just made, especially in the case of women, of indigenous women, we also have to ask ourselves, what happens when indigenous women access academic education and they come back to their community? But also, it's interesting to know what happens when an indigenous woman is formed or taught in the indigenous education, like the healers, like the midwives. So more than an answer, I think that this is a topic that's very important, thinking about education from the context of ancestral knowledge, but also recognizing the potential that exists in academic education as well, because for many, of course, we were formed in a colonized academy, in a school that discriminated against us. But the fact that we had access to this education offers a unique opportunity to strengthen their dynamics of our own peoples from these tools that are non-Indigenous, and to be able to understand them and use them to defend who we are as Indigenous women. And that's something that's very interesting to me as well. So in that road, we have to understand that there's a disconnect. Either it's an Indigenous education or an academic education, but there's also something we have to consider, and that's that we have to have some bridges between one and the other, and how from that Indigenous women can, from their dynamics and their knowledge, strengthen themselves. And that, I think, is very valuable. And that it continues to be in construction.
Claro, uno asiste a una universidad y se forma como abogado, pero también
that we have in community contexts, the midwives sometimes are formed from girls, since they're girls and they come from a family lineage, and it's important to take knowledge of that, or be conscious of that. And I guess I would say a lot more, but all this to say that I feel that this is a very important topic to bring to the forefront, the topic of education and how we are approaching this, how we are dealing with this. It's also one of the very important topics when facing recommendation number 39. Thank you, Dunen. It's very interesting, these tensions that you show, these possibilities, these challenges. In the exercise in the university, I see how many Indigenous women that access academic education, they find strategically a link between Indigenous education and academic education. They find a lot of empty spaces that would be interesting to explore. Thank you, Fatima. Fatima's connection was broken. She asked me to take notes. So Maria Lorena, we listen to you and we will send that to Fatima. Thank you, Angela and Dunen. I think Dunen also brings forth an important topic. It's not do I go for ancestral education or academic education. It's to have that holistic, integral view of education for life. And for me, as long as it has roots from my identity as a Mayaquiche woman, with that strength, with those roots that I identify, I emancipate and I feel free. I feel happy in this, in harmony with everything that surrounds me. I can have access to academic education as a right. Both educations are a right because we have been colonized, but it has been the main way to take away our roots. So the first right is the Indigenous education, to understand the sense of grandmothers, of seeds, of earth, Mother Earth. That's my roots, that's my basis. And if I have that strength, I can go to any other colonized university and learn what gives me life, what lights me up. I will see light where everybody else is darkness. So I will take advantage of the tools that are for life, I will take those and I will be emancipated. And with that, I will accompany the emancipation of my peoples and other women. That's how I see education. So how this system generates a separation. And so the biggest challenge is if grandparents are forming us to strengthen our identity, then we have to strengthen the indigenous education.
Vamos a migrar por condiciones de, porque esa es la realidad, las escuelas, las universidades no están en nuestros territorios, están lejos, no son pertinentes, no hay acceso geográfico ni económico. Y eso implica desarraigarnos, dejar la tierra, dejar la familia, porque a eso le pasa a todos los
But we
estudiantes.
need to make sure that we don't leave our people, our family, and our land. We can leave physically, but not in our hearts. And we open roads with the strength of our identity, because our grandparents say you leave, but you're going to come back. Because you need to understand what the academic system is, and then you're going to accompany us. I feel that that's what strength is. And from there, I feel like both educational systems need to take into consideration to visibilize or make visible this holistic approach, that we shouldn't pick one or the other. It is a right. Education from our people's perspective is a right. From our cosmovisions, from our educational systems, it's a right. Even if we have the clarity that it is colonized, that it's patriarchal, that generates a workforce for exploitation. We need to have that clarity and take what gives us life and what doesn't, move it on the side. That's what I feel. And that's the richness of those two studies, and all studies really, that our studies must present, if it's violence, what is the culture of life for peoples? If it's divorce, which is so interesting. Why do women get divorced? And a grandfather would say because because there's violence, and they are questioning patriarchal structures from their culture, and they're breaking schemes and parameters established by a church, for example, that says you can't get divorced. So we're breaking barriers, and each of the topics are very important. But the challenge is that as in researchers, we establish the strength that we have and see it from a holistic perspective, each topic. That would be my last reflection. And thank you so much for all of you. Thank you, Mayora. Thank you, Dunain and Fatima.
Your project is so interesting that we want to talk and talk, even if your signal is not the better today. Thank you very much, Fatima and Mimit and everyone for your presentations. I think we can have a break before to start the session number 3 of the module. It is okay for the group? Oh, Nai, go on, please. Oh,
Madam,
Nai, you are here. I am so
here. Have not presented.
Yes, but because you sent me a message and I understand you will be in the field work. Oh,
It's not
nice. Okay, I am so happy.
Yes.
Do you want to present now before the break? I think it's a good idea.
Yes.
Okay, go on, Nai. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Wait, first of all, okay. Good evening, everyone, and good morning, and good afternoon. I would like to present my. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Madam, okay.
Sí, la escuchamos.
My study is on indigenous women and girls and the impact on land encroachment and evictions. The title of my study will be The Unveiling Generation of Indigenous Women Facing Land Encroachment and Eviction. That's the title that I'll be working on. The abstract of my study is that I aim to devote into the often overlooked narration of women affected by land encroachment and eviction. Basically, I'll be working on exploring the personal stories and challenges facing the women, especially the Indigenous women in pastoral community. In my study that I seek to shed light on their experience, identify key issues, and propose solutions to address these needs, especially based on the topic that I mentioned previously. But when I come to the justification, I intend to overview the land encroachment and eviction by posing different significant challenges that we see globally, with women often bearing the disproportional burdens based on it. But despite that, also to amplify their voices and experience by them remain marginalized. So through this, I will be voicing their experience that is being hindered due to their representation mainly being limited. In this research, I seek to give more voices to women, especially the Indigenous women in pastoral community, to shed light on the understanding the complexities of different situations they face, especially by looking beyond and advocating for gender-inclusive policies on land governance, especially here in Tanzania. Also, as we know, in pastoral Maasai communities, Indigenous women are misrepresented due to numerous reasons, specifically by looking at the traditional practices and norms, where we know that in Maasai community, it's a patriarchal community in nature. So men's are dominant at different aspects that hinder women being represented at different issues. And through this research, I will show how to conduct and reflect Indigenous women in terms of numbers, not only in numbers as it has been done by previous researchers, but also voicing their contribution and understanding different issues that I get from them. I know that Indigenous women are facing a number of challenges, especially on language barrier. I'm a Maasai from the same community, so it's easy even to listen to the stories, basically from the vernacular language. Most of them do not have access to education, so they remain poorly in giving out their views in comparison to men. So conducting this study will bring into attention two main issues. One is the social, economic, and political impact of land encroachment and eviction to women and children, Indigenous people. Mentioning the social, here I would grasp in detail the social significance of the Indigenous women on land, basically on their spiritual, their social issues, how it attached to them by showing the whole overview on that and how they are going to be impacted whenever these encroachments and eviction are done in their territories. But economically, I'm going to speak about the Indigenous people in pastoral community. Our main source of income of all the livelihood is pastoralism. Then how it is impacted basically by seeing their proportional ways of livelihood and how it is economically impacted. Politically, it has been very difficult for pastoral women to be part in different political aspects after a number of them facing a number of challenges during this land encroachment and eviction, because some are detained, some are jailed, and this also diminished themselves coming out to post for different or campaign for any position. So through this, through this study, to shed light on that will enable to see the real impact on how these women in Indigenous community highly being affected or not. Also, the second issue that I intend to view out is the inherited colonial policies and regulation and laws that has brought enmity among the government and its people by the corruption in human activities, which is the violation of human due to several investments that result to violation of the community territorial right, focus on the impact of Indigenous women and girls. In this, I come from the community that we were separated by the colonial boundaries. The Maasai in Tanzania and the Maasai in the part of Kenya share everything. And we find that sometimes in different important ritual or sacred activity that that signify these communities sometimes fail to be done or fail to be practiced due to the colonial boundaries. We have the traditional land use plan. Sometimes this land use plan that we have as the communities, we find that we do not enjoy the custodianness of the community being the conservers of the environment because of these colonial boundaries. Today, it's hard for a Maasai from my community in Loliondo to cross to the other side of Kenya, where you find our family, the other part of family is in that side. But the only problem there is the colonial policies, is the colonial boundary. But if you go to the policies that we still have to date in the country like Tanzania, still signifies or still work under the colonial affiliation. And that's why we are still facing a number of issues like the investment, the encroachment, the other land users, and others. That's why I will show this map. This is the map of 1934. This map was the map of 1934 in Tanganyika. You see if you can see my cursor, all this side, all this, that my cursor go on to the other side, all this are the Maasai territorial land to the other side of the Kenya, and you see here, as my cursor go, all that, this show that these boundaries today that we see here, that separates Tanzania and Kenya, is just a line that was brought by the colonial government. But if you come to the other map, you see, without having any colonial boundary, this was the Maasai land here. It goes beyond to almost coming down to the Lake Victoria. But currently, if you see, currently you can see now, most of the Maasai land now are protected area. Here is the Lake Natron, where I come from, Ngorongoro. It's a protected area. If you look at this key, you see the Ngorongoro conservation area, which is here. All this is protected area. You see the game reserve, and you find here within this area, where you find Loliondo and others. You come to Longido, to Mtwaumbu, to Simanjiro, and other parts of the pastoralist Maasai. So we are highly affected by this encroachment because of the livelihood that the community of pastoralists live. And after that, after this encroachment, it's falls into investment by other land users. You come to the general objective. My general objective is advocate for Indigenous people land rights and aspiration for their Indigenous knowledge on land use. To my specific objective is to document and analyze the personal stories and experience of women, which are the Indigenous women affected by land encroachment and eviction. But the second one is to explore the social, economic, and emotional impact on women facing land-related challenges. And the third one is to recommend gender sensitive intervention and policy change to support women in similar situations. If you see this, I've tried to explain while speaking previously. My geographical location that I will be covering, I'll work on Ngorongoro district, specifically in 2 divisions, Ngorongoro division and Loliondo division. I will have 2 to 3 wards, where is Ololosogon, Loirin Magaiduru, and Ngusero Sambu. And in the villages, I will be working in Ngusero Sambu, Loirin, and Oldonyowas. But you can see there is Longido, where I random or through communication, we have some of the traditional leaders that are in Longido, so I will be consulting them. That's why Longido is mentioned there. Period covered by the case study. These are the activity. In April, I will be doing a lot of data collection with field visit, but in May, I will be consolidating some of the findings that I got in this April in the field. And in June, I'll, based on one of the methodology I'll be using, they will be having some gathering that will be held in June. So I will go again to the field to visit during this important Indigenous Maasai gathering, like a Manyata that will be there. We'll have another ceremony that I don't know in English, the proper name in English, that I will have to access more women during this month. So I will have some data. In July, I'll be doing the reporting. Here I will have, I will consult some of the people like the indigenous CSOs and NGOs, including some of the experts that we may have and beyond, but also I'll be dealing with a number of the traditional leadership system and structure, especially their mechanism and how it is, but also the prominent or wise men and women. But I will also work with the age set. In Maasai community, we have age sets, and each age set have its leadership and has some of the issues that are significant based on their age set. And indigenous girls, where in each age set, a lady that sings for a certain age set will have also its grouping. But also I will see on how to work with that, to see on other stakeholders. The methodology that I intend to be using them, I will have the research designing, where I will deal with qualitative research approaches using in-depth interview, focal group discussion, and narrative analysis by using the intercultural methodology like gathering, conversation, and others. But also I'll be doing the data collection by conducting and interviews and focal group with women affected by land encroachment and eviction, but also collect personal narration and story to capture the life experience of these indigenous women. Later on, I will also use the data analysis by utilizing the thematic analysis to identify recurring themes, pattern, insight from the collection of the data I will be doing. But later, I will also having the sampling, purposely to sample of the indigenous women from diverse background, religion, age groups who will be experiencing the land-related challenges. But also I'll be using the livelihood calendar. That's why if you go back to the activity, the activity, I said that in June, I will try to have a field visit, because on the calendar, you can see the picture here. This is the circumcision ceremony during June. You see now these gatherings are there. So I'll be also going for this gathering. If you see in July, we have the Manyata, but it starts during July during June before the July. So during this preparation, it's easy for me to meet many women and have different experience from them. But this also calendar is something that will help me to see the indigenous land use plan and how has been useful to them despite the different encroachment and eviction that is going on in their pastoral lands. Phases or stages of the methodology. Here I will be, these are ways that I will be using. I will start with the literature review that is also in progress. I've started doing a lot on that, try to see how they have done and fill some of the gaps and learn more from it. But the second is by using the indigenous or intercultural methodology, which involve direct contact with the prominent and identified community structure to showcase and share their ideology, fact behind many case study, which will pave the way for my further engagement. But also, sort the gathering that will be correlated to the topics and build grounds of having engagement with identified leaders. Here, I will sort by even identify different gatherings that this gathering will be conducted at a certain month, a certain week. How can I get a certain leader or a certain group of women and all that? And this is done, and I've already captured all that. But I have also the development of the interview and questions that I'll be using. And then later on, I'll have the field visit and data collection, but also consolidation and documentation. At this stage, I would anticipate to have all the needed data from the community and ready to put them in appropriate format as per our instructors from Madam Angela and Lorraine, how we will be instructing us from all that way. But later on, the reporting and dissemination if authorized. Ethical consideration. I work with the community that are still bound to their traditional, still bound to their mode of livelihood. So while going to them, I need also to observe all this. I need to have the informed consent from all the participants. Why am I coming to you? Why I need to do this? And so the respect of their ethical consideration. Expected result. After all, I expect that the study aims to provide a rich understanding of the untold story of women impacted by land encroachment and eviction. It seeks to offer insight into their struggle, highlight their resilience, and propose recommendation to empower and support these indigenous women. As I've narrated, we have been facing a number of issues, so in this also will be one of the key findings that will help to support the indigenous women. But also the significance of the study, this research holds to signify in amplifying the voices of marginalized women, informing policy discussion, advocating for gender-inclusive approach to land governance by bringing attention to this untold story. The study aimed to contribute to a more equitable and just society. At the end of the day, we hope that the government, the different fora will continue emphasizing on bringing a just society, especially for this group that are still facing marginalized focus. This is one of the meeting I had with the indigenous women, but it was previously on issues of land eviction from one of the village known as Ingusero San. In the reference and others, I'll back them just to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nai. I am so glad you should present today. And now we have the comment of Lorena.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Nay. Igual me parece el abordaje.
Thank you, Nai. I feel like dealing with land access is a very important topic like the others. They are not isolated and they are complementing each other, but land is determining not only because of the economic value that it represents, but also because of the value. Land is space where we are born. Land promotes identity and it has a sacred sense, and I think it's a very important topic. And I think your objectives are very clear as well. I didn't listen the main questions, but I think they're very important to have it clear. What do you expect? What are you looking for to achieve with this research? But with your objectives, you determine three. The first one is the limited access of women to land, then the impacts on the policies that have limited colonization. I feel like that reflection is very important, including your justification where you establish that colonization came to break with the right to land, with the articulation as a Maasai territory, and it divides them. It's a way because colonization came to weaken the identity of the Maasai people, which is why it's so important to see that, because when we are imposed geographical divisions that are administrative, they divide our identity and our people. So to have this reflection is so important, and lead that established in the study because that determines today the access to land. It's a topic and an objective. I listened that you said that access to land for the Maasai people, and then you make an emphasis in women.
Usted precise más. Va a hablar.
But I want to have you be more focused on the access to land to Maasai women. That's going to happen when you do the analysis. That land, and you're going to say that Maasai people haven't had access to land, and that lack of access impacts women even more. But to be able to narrow down that even more is important. Then you talk about policies and legal framework and everything that it has, that continuous evictions and taking away of land is important, because you're saying it doesn't just respond to a cultural aspect where women are excluded. It responds to a structural position that has created a limitation of access to land for women. Another element that you cite and in the proposal, I would like that if you consider it's important, I think that your study needs to reflect first that historical aspect of what the Maasai territory look like before, to the part of what is for the Maasai women's land. What does it mean ancestrally?
Tiene la tierra. No es solo el valor económico.
It's not just the economic value. It's not just a part of where you live. It's a system for life, so that your study can talk about that establishment and what are the practices of care and relation and possession of land, and what are going to have that transition of how they took away the land for women. It also cites the impacts. What are the impacts of colonization and neo-colonization, and the taking away from land and the impact it has on women and the Maasai people? Then you establish strategies, but not just strategies that are coming, but also what have they historically done to take care of land? What is happening now to achieve the access to land for women? Are there organizations or spaces where women are defending their land, but not just an individual right, but also a collective right from the originary peoples? Because that's part of the collective right, the right to land. And what strategies are being implemented? So stating not only the problem, but also what is being done, what are they working on, and the capabilities of women that still don't have a land, and how they survive and how they work the land in contexts that are even more, where you have less land for people and for women, and what are they doing? What are their relationship? What is it like ancestrally, and what does it look like today? And also establish a proposal. What's going to happen when you recover the spiritual, holistical perspective? A proposal to strengthen the sense of links of belonging to Mother Earth as women and peoples, and all the aspects of the right to land and the collective rights, the right to land for women and collective rights, and how we do that proposal and how those actions are affecting the communities and the Maasai people. And then, of course, the public and political incidents for the legal framework that have facilitated the invasions and the taking away of land. And what are we going to do as a Maasai people, women and men, before that eviction? What's happening to the originary peoples of the world, because this continues being something that they face because of invasion and extractivism. So how are we going to get ahead of this? Because land has to do with structural issues, not just cultural issues. So that would be my reflection. Only in terms of the methodology, likewise, I do think that I love it when you establish the calendar. That's where the heart is. You're going to insert to that life calendar that it's linked to Earth, from when it's cleaned and celebrated and commemorated. When you say this ceremony, how are you going to insert yourself in that dynamic from that calendar? We have very little time. We only have April, part of April, and all of May. So how is that dynamic going to affect your process based on the Maasai community? So maybe delimitate, because of time, how it's going to affect your research. I think that's very wonderful that you are adding that, because that's going to give you a perspective from the community, not from your time, but from the link of the community to the land. And if you're going to talk to women, you do have to create a space to listen, to make your voice be heard, and their needs and their establishment of women be felt. So that's where you have to clarify yourself. You have to get access to the land of the Maasai people. You're going to make an emphasis to women without leaving to the side the access of land of the people, because one thing that determines the other. Because if the Maasai people don't have access to land, much less do women. Will women have access to land? Those would be my feedback. But I do think that it would be important that your report or your research reflects all this wisdom, all the cosmogonic knowledge and ancestral knowledge of the Maasai people in regards to land. And I think that perspective is not individual property, it's a collective property, it's the collective rights, and how this can also impact positively or negatively women. I think that would be my recommendation, my suggestions, to make sure that to encourage you that it's a very important research. And Nukila also is working on land aspects, that they have several similar perspectives, but they're particular based on the context and where you're doing. And I think that's very important, and they're going to complement each other very much. Every time I hear the proposals, I get very excited, and I only ask the heart of earth and land to accompany us and the people, so that they can wake up on the strength, so that you can have knowledge and proposals flow, so that you can really have research that are for making public these issues and this strength that is alive in people. And I also ask that Angela and I and Dunan and Nadia that are accompanying this process can have the wisdom and the respect and the love, so that we can accompany these processes. That would what I would say. Thank you. Thank you, Mayora. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Well, I think we have now our break during 10 minutes, and we will start the session number 3. Thank you. Well, welcome to the last part of this section. I want to share the PowerPoint presentation. Can you see my screen?
Sí se ve.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Oi. Okay. Jessy, ¿puedes ver la pantalla completa o salen muchas cosas en la pantalla aún? Jessy, ¿la pantalla la ves completa? I don't know if it is working. Can you see the screen? Only the presentation, or do you have different images? Hello. Can you hear me?
We can see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So today. Okay. Well, today we have this session about natural and cultural of Indigenous peoples and Indigenous women in intercultural research. Yes, the objective of this is to learn and to analyze the processes and debates of Indigenous women in relation peoples. Perhaps even in projects is not the legal question is not the center of your projects. It is important sometimes to have some legal foundation projects.
Ya no escuchamos. Ah, muy bien. Sí, yo creo que
sí.
Guys, I think the teacher lost her connection. Please give her a second so to connect.
Ángela, tal vez un comentario de cada región, de Avyayala, de África, de Asia,
Perfect.
sobre qué les ha parecido esta socialización.
I want to ask you before she starts,
Propuesta de estudio de caso.
before we start again, I want to ask members from Asia and Africa and Latin America if you want to share your insights into the process that we just lived. What did you feel about what you presenting, listening to your other peers, listening to the feedback of your presentations? Can we get some of that, please? Any volunteers who want to speak? What was the process like for you?
Ángela, ¿ya está? Bienvenida. pienso que si ella está, podemos ir con ella. Era solo para mientras llenábamos el espacio.
Oh, yes.
Tiene el micrófono apagado, profe Ángela.
Gracias. Ok, gracias. Pero si me oyeron esta parte de la...
No, es desde el principio quedó
No,
bloqueada,
llevo hablando
suspendida.
sola desde el principio. Dios mío, qué vergüenza, qué vergüenza. Ay, no. O sea, desde sesión 3.
Sí, desde que empezó la presentación, ajá, ya no escuchamos.
Mayora, cada vez estoy más chiflada. Perdón.
No, parece que fue su señal, porque se quedó en suspenso, entonces solo veíamos la Filmina y su rostro, pero en suspenso. Bienvenida.
Okay, gracias. Bueno, welcome to this session. Today we are working about two interesting concepts, natural and cultural heritage of indigenous peoples and in the intercultural research. I think it's so important for you because even if
Perdón, no se escucha la interpretación, o no sé si solo yo no la escucho en español. Por favor, por favor.
Ok, me cuentan si ahora sí. Hoy está difícil el comienzo, ¿no? Ok, entonces podemos reiniciar. This is the session number 3. I want to present today some legal and political elements about natural and cultural heritage of indigenous peoples and specifically of Indigenous Women in Intercultural Research. Mayora Lorena, ¿ahora sí está funcionando bien? ¿Me escuchan?
Sí la escuchamos,
Ok,
sí
perfect.
la escuchamos.
Sí se escucha,
Okay.
gracias.
Perfect. The principal objective is to learn and to analyze the different processes, example, debates to about indigenous women and the protection and the defense and the revitalization of indigenous women knowledge. And as we can see, in your projects, I think in all the projects, this perspective to the revitalization and protection of cultural and natural heritage is crucial. No? I think it's important perhaps to know a little more about UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This declaration has a specific section and some articles that you should use in your projects. And perhaps when you are presenting these projects, the international cooperation, etc. One of these example is Article number 8. Article number 8 is about indigenous peoples and individuals from indigenous peoples because they have the right not to be subjected or forced by assimilation, by cultural assimilation and destruction of their culture. No, we have in the same way Article 11 about the right to practice and to revitalize cultural tradition, customs, and heritage. And this general right includes the right to maintain, to protect, and to develop the past, present, and future manifestation of the cultures. Some of these examples are, for example, archaeological and historical sites, sacred sites, temples, artifacts, designs, ceremonies, technologies, and visual and performing arts and literature. Now, for example, in the different projects, we have the methodologies, no? And as Lorena have been emphasizing the importance of ontologies and epistemological perspectives and cosmovisions, these UN declarations should and could be used to protect your projects, your relation with your communities, and this incredible process of intercultural in research. Okay, here I have some examples and videos, but I think we don't have a lot of time today because Nadia will be with us, I think 10 minutes before the ending of the session. And perhaps we can see the videos in other session, okay? I want to go and to present some elements, important and crucial elements, I think, for your projects, because in many proposals and projects and in your experiences as Indigenous women researchers, I think I saw and I see actually an restorative perspective. No, it's like a reparation perspective. And for example, today Lorena told us the importance, no, to if is colonial concept should be
Sí escuchamos, solo vemos que sí se quedó de nuevo en suspenso, Ángel. Sí, 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 así es. Sí, creo que es su señal. Quizá.
No se escucha, no está abierto su micrófono.
Ay, Dios santo. Jessie, o sea, se oyó hasta aquí, hasta la Declaración de Naciones Unidas y el articulado. Jessie, hola. Hola, ¿me oyen?
Yo te escucho, Ángela.
Ay, gracias, Nadia. Ok, ok. ¿Y me ves la pantalla?
Sí.
Ok, muchas gracias. Well, I want to continue to this legal instrument because here we have some expression and modalities important for your projects. For example, the concept of restitution. The restitution is the need to return to the state prior to the damage. Sometimes in this kind of projects is impossible because the harm, the wound is so violent that we can't think it is possible to restitute, no? But I think it's important to know in the legal perspective, this concept is important. In terms of methodology and in terms of research, we need to think about how our projects, our methodologies should contribute to the restitution of the harms and the wounds of sexual violence, of divorce, of access to land, of early marriage, etc., genital female mutilation, etc. Another concept important here is the concept of compensation. Here we have the economic perspective damage, medical and physical, for example, compensation. I am thinking, for example, about the project of Denis Mukwege Foundation and Nadia Murad Foundation, the Global Survivor Funds for Survivors survivors of sexual harassment and violence related to conflict armed. And we have a lot of experiences in the world as a city of joy, for example, in the Congo Republic or in Central Africa. And I think many of your projects are an example of compensation, no? The other dimension is the rehabilitation perspective with the importance of questions about medical and psychosocial and ethno-spiritual rehabilitation after this violence. And I think your projects, your questions, your objectives need to be to think about how you can contribute to the rehabilitation of survivors and about our own rehabilitation and agency and resiliency and agency. In terms of satisfaction, UN and the different legal instruments in our countries are talking about truth measures, restitution of identity, for example, of children's bodies, emotional experiences, the accountability of public, for example, forgiveness and apologies, and symbolic measures that you can think in terms of lobbying and the section of incidents to your project now, because the satisfaction in terms of the participants of your projects is so important for us. No, in the traditional research, these kind of questions and perspective doesn't be introduced. No, but I think here your incredible projects should be and could be introduced this kind of reflections, actions, and programs. And finally, we have the principle of guarantee of non-repetition. because in many of your studies and cases, we are facing a systematic and structural violence and problematic, but we can contribute a little to recognize the importance and the guarantees of non-repetition. Here, I want to talk a little about an important and a very interesting case in Guatemala. Is the case of the elders of Sepur Sarco. 15 elders from the Maya nation have been abused, sexual abused, and during this period, in between 1982 to 1987, by soldiers in this military base. And one of these women died, but today this is the iconic case of indigenous women rights in a national court. I think it's important to know a little more about this case. I want to begin by some of the principal elements of the research strategy, because this team have been composed by psychologists, indigenous psychologists, white psychologists, sociologists, lawyers, elders. And I think after, perhaps Lorena should share with the group some of her comments about this case. And in this research team and all the process, the legal process to access to justice in Guatemala after this advocacy, legal advocacy, the Healing Project was at the center, have been at the center of the process. It was not only a project, a research project, but in dialogue with legal education and the construction of truth and judicialization of the facts. I think here it was so important to the reflection about the sexual violence in dialogue with the protection of the community and the collective rights perspective, but putting in the center the girls, the mothers, the grandmothers, the pregnant women, because sometimes when we're talking only about the rights of nature and the cultural rights, the narratives and the experiences of indigenous women should be invisible. No, and I think this is an interesting case to point out. I think another interesting thing is the destruction of natural resources and all the reflections and research about the destructions of houses, of animals, domestic utensils, the displacement due by violence, the loss of housing. No, I think here we have an interesting research in dialogue between the individual experience of indigenous women from Sapur Sarco and the impact of the Maya nation in this area. And the case points out a specific area, the reproductive violence, because this is a very a new area to do research about the abortions and forced pregnancies, the inability to conceive again after sexual violence, for example, the vaginal hemorrhages, muscle pains, illness, no health care or attention, the culture of silence and re-victimization. And I think even if we have a lot of critiques and challenges in this legal decision, I think it is important because it's the first time, I think, in the case of our region in Latin America, 50 women have a compensation in terms of sexual abuse, sexual slavery by Guatemalan militaries, with an important decision, a legal decision that could be useful for other countries and research projects. Okay, here I want to share some of the strategical methodologies. For example, we have the comics and the graphic novels used to work with the community and to democratize, to think how we can deal with the difficulty, to the challenge to bring a possibility to the community and access to this difficult discussion, legal discussion. This is the comic, the comic of the sentence, of the legal decision and the history and the agency of the elders of Sepulsarco. And this is an historical precedent because domestic slavery and human rights violations during the internal conflict armed in Guatemala shows the junction between ancestral patriarchy, colonial patriarchy, colonialism, and misogyny. And for example, the experience of using comics, novel graphic, artistic expositions, photo voices, expressions, pictures, using theater, for example, ceremonies, etc., should be interesting. I want to present briefly the victims' central perspective in this research team and in this legal process, because the needs, the expectations, and the well-being of the survivors and the leaders have been the center of the construction and elaboration of the process. First of all, the promotion and recognition of the rights, the protection, the participation in the whole process, as many of you shows in your timelines. I think this is a very important principle. The psychological care, because as Lorena told us today and in the last section, asking about sexual violence, about violence against Indigenous women, divorce, etc., should be painful. For many of the participants, it is important to think about how I can propose a self-care plan in dialogue, for example, with the spirituality, the healers from my community, etc., etc. The access to psychological service, if it is possible, and medical care, Indigenous medical care, and enjoyment of their sexual and reproductive rights, not only in terms of advocacy, denunciation, visibilization of the wounds and the painful memories, but even in terms of agency, healing, empowerment, etc., etc. The other aspect I think is important and interesting is the collaborative and intercultural research, because the survivors have been participating during the different phases in the design and the implementation. No, the grandmothers were part of the team. The name of the organization is Dialogue U. And in all the process, their views, the objectives, the life plans, their needs, the coordinated response, the data collection and information processes, the risks, the protection, for example, of identity is very important in these cases. And I think we need to think, for example, if one of the participants in your projects can and should ask for confidentiality, etc., etc. Because, for example, in this case, as we can see in the picture, the women use their shawls during the legal audiences. Okay. And I want perhaps here to share with the group some of your impressions and suggestions about how you think you can introduce these principles in your projects. And I don't know, perhaps if Lorena should comment some of your experience about the Sepur Sarco case in Guatemala with the group.
Gracias, Ángela. Comentarles que
Thank you, Angela. The topic of violence, of gender violence, of sexual violence, or structural violence, the whole part of restoration and transformation is something that's very important in Guatemala. Perdón. When I talk about violence, I'm talking about the environmental pollution. We're talking about different types of forms of violence, criminal and the territories, people who go to jail for trying to defend a right, etc. So the whole process here is the restoration of the transformative and worthy restoration of the territories of the women. And when I relate this to the studies that we're doing right now, in the three sections, we're trying to evidence how you are violating earth, the land, the rights of women and children, the access to water. So it is important, even for the research, what do we understand in terms of restoration and restituting? And what's the other topic that you mentioned? Restoration, restitution. I'm forgetting the last one, Angela. And rehabilitation. These are all terms that are thought from the outside, let's say. How do you understand these topics? So that in a solidary way, how do we understand this? In terms of gender violence, in the different types of racism, of land being violated, in the territories. How do we restore this and restitution and rehabilitation of all of these cases of violence? Like an elder would say, what I want is, I don't want a certain amount of money. I want you to recognize publicly what happened and to ask for forgiveness, to commit themselves to not repeat this practice, and to walk for them. It was important for the person to walk on their knees as a way to feel the pain and the shame that the person had felt. So it goes beyond. And you're saying to a son, this topic of violence, what I want is, how much money you want? No. What I want is for you to ask for forgiveness, is that you are there when they get buried, that you open my box when I get buried, so that you can feel what it means to bury your mother, and that you can see what you did to her life. So the restoration and restitution or rehabilitation and the other terms that we mentioned, how do we see them as indigenous people? Because when a woman is violated, the whole system goes into shock. The spirit, the whole energy system, the water, the fire, everything is violated. So how do they live this? So we got to get into another type of scope, into a more in-depth scope of what's happening and what it means when we talk about pollution, restoration of the land, when we talk about divorces, when we talk about children. What's happening? Like women who are getting divorced, for example, they're stigmatized, they're marginalized. And the man who's separated, nothing happens to him. Oh yeah, and he's getting married after a while as well. So take that into account too. So how do we, from that point of view, how do we do that worthy, transformative restoration that has a scope that goes beyond economic? And it's a psychological perspective there. So you have to have that type of mental health and the holistic health of the person as well. So it's worthy to also mention that if you can all recover that, what it is, and that each proposal in objective number 4, which you mentioned there in the sections, we can state there proposals of restoration, of rehabilitation, and compensation, reconstitution, and the other terms that we mentioned, right? What are we doing? But now internally, and also with the structure, by the state as well, because the state is the one allowing the violence, and many times it's the state that's actually making us victims of violence, because they're the ones giving us. And so I have to talk about the education side, the economic side, when they allow pollution as well in the lands because of the capital waste and the coming of foods, junk food, of avoiding seeds, polluting our seeds. So what has the state done to restore that part as well? What proposals are they bringing into the conversation for the restoration and rehabilitation? I think that this is very on point with the proposals that we're talking about. Obviously, all of them under a legal framework that we've seen here, and that's an advantage that we have that we need to highlight as well. And talk about not only about the restitution or rehabilitation or recovery of the people, but also it's not only from that scope of the water, of the rivers, of the land, of the energies. So all of that, it gets involved in one way or another. So perhaps in our proposals, we do a little first step to that challenge by going more in depth, which is very important. And give sense to the methodologies. That would be my point.
Muchas gracias, Mayora. Yo quisiera pedirles a cada una.
I would like to ask each one of you, the participants.
I want to ask now, each participant should say a word, no? A concept about what is reparation, what is compensation, what is restitution for you, and how we can introduce in your projects this kind of perspective. No, in one word, because Nadia will talk with us a very important subject 10 minutes before the ending of the section, but I want to begin, no, asking the group to propose one word. Okay, Jessie, do you want to start?
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good morning. I think that the word justice and care are two concepts that are very important, that are implicit and related to what you were sharing with us.
Muchas gracias. Samay?
Thank you, Jessie. Samai?
Yo creo que la palabra
Yes, sisters, I think the word healing and ritual practices are super important based on what we're talking about as well.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
For example,
Nikila,
can you share?
¿tú puedes compartir?
Yeah. I think I choose the words forgiveness. Forgiveness, yeah.
Thank you, Nukila. Liz, Jenny Lynn, perdón.
Jenny Lynn, please. Go ahead. I would choose two words, action and cleaning, because there's a process of cleaning and restitution when it comes to these actions. Thank you so much. Liz? I think the same, justice in regards to the rights to land and culture of the indigenous communities. Thank you, Liz. Fifian? Vivian?
I choose the term action as well, because the challenges that we face needs action. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Vivian. Nai? Nai, can you hear me? Mimint?
I'm still thinking, teacher.
Okay.
Can I have some time?
Of course, of course, of course. Thank you, Mimint. Well, I think we are now. I am very happy to hear your projects and your wonderful proposals. And now I think we can. We can open the floor to Nadia, because she has a very important information for you. Thank you very much for the seminar and the session. Nadia, somos todas.
We are all ears. We're all yours, Nadia.
Hola. Gracias, Ángela.
Hi, thank you, Angela. Well, hello to you all. Dunem, I don't know if you want to help me project the document on the screen of the reimbursement format. First of all, girls, I think apologize with many of you or with the ones that did not receive the information correctly. And this is a little bit of administrative information and logistic information. The first thing is to ask the girls who have not sent the administrative documents to please send the documents as soon as possible. We are at the limit. Please remember that the administrative procedures for the transfer of resources in FIMI take a very long time, take a few days, and we have deadlines. So for those of you who haven't sent the information, if you can't send it this week, it's very difficult that you'll be able to receive it in time to do your field work. That on one side. The important thing here that you need to send is the scholarship adjudication data and complete the data that we are missing, which is highlighted in yellow, must be signed. The letter needs to be signed by you as well, and it has to have the data that has been filled out in section A and B. And try to fill all the different fields. And the organization that backs up your research. That's very important, the letter, the commitment letter, and the WeTransfer. The WeTransfer are the bank information that FIMI is going to use to be able to take the money, to send you the money. The scholarship money, and it all needs to be filled out. Nothing needs to be pending. If something isn't on there, it will only be the intermediary bank, and then you leave that in blank. But the address, the account number, city, all of those data need to be included, and it needs to be correct so that the money reaches. Because that means that we have to go back and forth, and that takes longer. All this information, maybe we could do it at the beginning, but I tried to do it with each one of you in this exchange back and forth of emails, clearing up this information. But since we have many of you that haven't sent the information, so I'm taking advantage of this time to clear up this information and ask you that you send your formats properly filled out. For the subject of
de reembolso, creo que este formulario causó mucha
the reimbursement format, I think this one caused a lot of confusion. Maybe I shouldn't have sent it yet. I shouldn't have mixed it with the administrative documents, but the idea of sending the reimbursement format with time is because we're doing the process of creating budgets and all of this. So the idea was to have an idea of all the different expenses that you might have in your community and in your place before you got to the country where we're going to meet.
No, FIMI va para todas estas, y a eso, bueno, con varias ya lo.
We already cleared up for many of you. For those of you who haven't sent, FIMI will cover directly the international tickets from your country to Tanzania. All of them everything that has to do with local transportation in Tanzania, the travel insurance, the food, the hotel, FIMI is going to take care of that. This reimbursement format is only for those local expenses. Maybe if you can, if you can get it up here. It's only for the expenses that are going to be carried out. For example, if you live in a community and you have to move to a different city within your same country to ask for your visa, that cost is going to be included there. To go to the embassy, if you went in a cab, that cost is going to go there. If to take the international flight, you had to travel from your city to another city, that cost, small cost, is going to be there. That's what you're going to add in this format. If to take an international flight, you have to go to a different city and you have to sleep a night in a hotel to then go take your flight, that cost is going to be in the format. Don't worry about the international ticket because you've all asked for that. But the international ticket is going to be bought directly by FIMI. FIMI in their time is going to send you 3 proposals for itinerary from the city that you're going to take your flight. And you will say, okay, this one is the best one. And FIMI will buy the itinerary that you select. The visa. The idea to ask you prior, for all the cities, it's different, the visa. So the idea was to have a clear picture of what each embassy asks each one of you according to your countries. What we saw now, and we're coordinating that with our partners over there, is that to gather all the needs and then try to write a letter in coordination with immigration so that for you it's easier to manage your visa. So please be a little patient. This takes some time. There's a lot of interinstitutional coordinations that need to be done in the country, and these things take time. I'm gonna ask you for some patience when we already have that. I'm gonna send you the letters that you each have expressed that you need. For those who haven't sent the letters, we need to know what are the requirements that you need to ask for the visa. I need a letter from the organization. I need a reservation of a hotel. I need a itinerary, a ticket. All those documents that you are going to need is the information that we need to know right now in order to provide it with you with time. What else? I think from there, for those of you who have not sent your documents, it's important that you sent it on Monday at the latest. For many of you, you already have your scholarship. So there's sisters who answered very quickly and they already received their scholarship and they can start doing their field work. And for those of you who have not, please send it by Monday. We have 6 minutes. I don't know if anybody has a question, administrative question based on any of the documents that you sent. Maybe those of you who haven't received the request, for those of you who are approved, I didn't write to you, but it's all approved. Any of you who have not sent information, have any questions, I'm going to try to send you an email, a personal email reminding you to send the document. Is it clear? The format of reimbursement is clear. Thank you for those of you who are reacting. That's all I wanted to say. I have a question just to clear that for them. This format of reimbursement, the expenses that are going to be generated there's a limit amount that they have to present. They have to present receipts or what? Just so that they know what they need to present. Thank you, Lore, for that question. That it's very important. Yes. That's one of the ideas of having the format. See the amount that we need to evaluate of what we're going to spend. All the expenses are going to be reimbursed with a receipt. Don't lose any of your expense receipts that you make for this I mentioned, because they will be reimbursed in Tanzania. with the receipt. So you have to present the expense receipt, and then those will be reimbursed. In cases that the amount is too high, that is administratively speaking is too high, or that the administrative team feels like it's too high, we'll speak about it with each one of you, which is why it's important that you detail carefully where the taxi going from where to do what. That detail is very important, because that way we'll be able to have all the information clear and justified. Those are the two questions, correct? Yes. And that format also needs to be sent in anticipation, correct? Yes, correct. Now, in case that it's too high for the sisters and you don't have the resources, I was explaining to one of the sisters, and I want to talk to administration, the possibility of paying things ahead, but it needs to be very detailed. And it needs to be very clear what the justification is. So thank you for the space, Lore and Angela. I have a question before we finish. I sent you an email requesting these requisites that you're asking. In my case, for the visa, which is a invitation letter and this itinerary with the tickets and reservations and whatnot. So now I only wait. I understood that. Yes, just be a little patient. We'll send you a folder with everything, the information of the hotel, where we're going to stay, all of it. Sometimes in letters, you have to have the detail of where you're going to stay, when you mention the expenses and whatnot, and even the reservation. Some embassies ask for the hotel reservation. We're trying to do things in parallel and be able to do one package of letters, for example, and send it one time. I also understood that you're doing some errands so that we have the visas be easier for the group. Yes, we're doing that. We are trying to do that. Yaneli? Is there an email for sending a scholarship? Well, I have the list for the scholarships that already came out, for the transfer that already were done. I'm going to send you an email to each one. And then you can send you can send an email saying that you received the transfer. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. I don't think anybody else has more questions. There are some messages on the chat. Going to be in Arusha, in that city. It's going to be from the 29th to the 31st of July. The travel agency sees how many hours it takes. For example, in my case, that I leave from Nicaragua, I tell the agency you would reach one day before for the event because it starts on the 29th, but all of you would arrive on the 28th. And so the agency sees the amount of times of hours it takes according to the countries, and it tells us in the itinerary, and we adjust the flight based on that. If I have to reach on the 28th and my flight takes 24 hours, well, then I have to leave on the 27th or the 25th, 20, whatever. But we all have to arrive on the 28th to be there on time on the 29th.
Tendrían que, ¿cómo vamos a conseguir la visa, verdad? A ver si los intérpretes me ayudan. Please, how we are going to get the visa?
How are we going to get the visa to Tanzania? You have to figure out in your countries or do a research in your countries. I was telling you that in the email. You have to do a research in your country. What do you need? From an immigration perspective to travel to Tanzania. That's what I was saying a few moments ago. I have to figure out what I need. Do I need to manage a visa? Do I have an embassy in my country? Do I not? What's the closest country that has a Tanzania embassy to manage the visa, to ask for the visa, and get in contact with that embassy and ask for the requisites to be able to get the visa. In the email, we wrote a link that where we did our own research and we shared some links, but I suggest that you only stay with the information that you have there. Try to verify, try to corroborate that that information is correct, because you know your context and find out better where to get that information. So you can, Fatima, look in a country that's closer where there's an embassy, a Tanzanian embassy. For most of the girls that have done this procedure, you said online. You just have to upload it, do the procedure online, and you send a copy of the passport. And then when you get to Tanzania, they steal your passport. For each case, it's different for each country. Some of you won't have to ask for a visa. You just arrive, and once you arrive to Tanzania, they're going to steal your passport, for example. That's why it's important that you are in charge of finding out what the requirements are, because you guys are going to be in charge of the entire procedure. FIMI, what we're going to facilitate is the supporting documentation to do step 1, step 2. But that step 1, step 2, you have to find out what it is and tell us what it's going to be like. I would ask, please, that in regards to what we're saying, that the way you're saying, to try to see the way that we are facilitated with the African visa, if you can let us know about the process, because maybe I think that what if I send my documents and then for whatever reason they say no, it's an expense to send it again. So I would say if you could please notify us on that regard. Yes, of course, we will notify you. We'll send you a file with all the information that you asked for. So for the time being, don't do anything, tickets, just have the information that you need. The supporting documents that you need for the visa. And wait, and we will send you that information with that you requested. International tickets, I say again, we will do we will do that, and we will buy it. And if it's for visa, we'll send it to you in the folder. Okay, I think we're good to go. All right, thank you. We're 6 minutes over, but thank you so much to the interpreters for your patience. Not a problem at all. Thank you to you all. Bye. Have a good day. Bye. Good afternoon. Bye.
Teacher.
Bye.
Teacher, I want to say something. We cannot get into FIMI platform to look at the PowerPoints or something. We can log in the page. I'm not sure is that only me or anyone.
For me, I can access mine, me.
Me parece que ya no está conectada.
I feel like we don't have anybody online anymore, but in my case, it's in Spanish, but I have LinkedIn and it was fine. To see it and to download the slides, I have been able to log in. Maybe we meet right on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Vivian. Yes.
Yes, if you can write to the teacher on WhatsApp, maybe. You mean?